Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going on a deep dive exploring journaling, and I'm so excited to have you along for the ride. So for this deep dive, we've got stacks of research and articles on whether paper or digital journaling is better. And I think it'll be super fascinating to unpack all this. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. It's a classic debate, right? Especially now with all the tech we've got, it really makes you wonder why we're still so drawn to pen and paper.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I totally get the appeal of having my phone or tablet there all the time, but there's something so satisfying about putting pen to paper, you know, almost like it's a more mindful experience.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. There's actually research showing that handwriting activates way more brain activity than typing does. It's like our brain is working harder to process the information.
So it's not just about getting the words out, but really engaging with them on a deeper level.
Exactly. And you know what's really cool? This deeper engagement can actually boost memory retention.
Right.
Yep. So basically, the more you journal by hand, the more you're likely to remember those thoughts and feelings later on.
Whoa, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I always figured typing would be faster, though. I mean, I even read somewhere that people taking notes on paper were 25% quicker than those using tablets. How is that even possible?
I know it sounds counterintuitive, right? But it might actually be the limitations of handwriting that make it so effective. When we're forced to be more concise with our words, we automatically have to process and summarize the information as we go.
So it's like our brains are doing double duty.
Pretty much. And there's another big plus to paper journaling that I think you'll appreciate. It unleashes creativity in a way that digital just can't match.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like doodling in the margins or sketching out ideas.
Exactly, that freedom of expression. It lets those aha moments flow more naturally.
Plus, there are no distractions. Have you ever tried to have a deep reflective moment while your phone is buzzing with notifications? It's almost impossible. With paper, you're creating a dedicated space just for you and your thoughts.
Yeah, that's so important. It's about creating those boundaries and giving yourself permission to truly disconnect and reflect.
Okay, so paper is definitely scoring some points here. But we can't ignore those sleek tablets and apps, right?
Of course not. They definitely have their advantages too. Like, think about accessibility for a second. You're on a train, an idea hits you, and boom, your digital journal is right there in your pocket. You can capture those fleeting thoughts anytime, anywhere.
That's a good point. But wouldn't you say that same accessibility can be a double-edged sword? It's so easy to get sidetracked, you know? Like, how often do you sit down to journal on your tablet and end up scrolling through social media instead?
Oh yeah, all the time. It's definitely a challenge. But let's not forget about the organizational superpowers of digital. Think about tagging entries, searching by keywords, even tracking your emotions over time.
So you could actually see how often you felt inspired over the past year. That's wild.
Exactly. It's like having a personal archive of your emotional journey. You can start to see patterns and identify triggers and gain a much deeper understanding of yourself.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But with all that data and the ability to edit entries so easily, do we risk overthinking things? Does it take away from the raw honesty that I associate with journaling?
Hmm. That's a really interesting question. And to be honest, it's one that researchers are still grappling with. There's definitely a potential downside to being able to constantly tweak and polish your entries. It might hinder that stream of consciousness that's so valuable for self-discovery.
So we've got paper promoting focus and deeper engagement, and then we have digital with its accessibility and organizational power. It's like choosing between two completely different tools for the same job.
It really is. And just like with any tool, it's crucial to know the strengths and weaknesses of each.
Totally.
Like, for instance, paper can be bulky and not ideal for people with certain physical limitations, whereas digital often has features that can help with that.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And while those digital journals are super handy for jotting down thoughts on the go, they can also be a gateway to distraction. Ever find yourself 5 apps deep when you sat down to journal on your tablet?
Ugh. Yes. Paper definitely wins in the focus department.
And let's not forget about security. Losing a paper journal is one thing, but a hacked digital account can be a total nightmare.
Oh, absolutely. It's a tricky balance between convenience and privacy, for sure.
It really seems like there's no easy answer here. This decision is so personal.
You're right. And that's why it's so important to hear from different perspectives. We can learn a lot from how others approach this.
I'm definitely curious to hear what other journalers have to say. Stay tuned because we're going to dive into some diverse voices after the break.
It's funny how we always talk about paper versus digital, like it's a battle or something. But maybe it doesn't have to be so black and white, you know?
Yeah, that's a good point. We get so caught up in the debate that we forget It's really about finding what works for us as individuals.
Exactly. And sometimes that means going against what we think should work. We actually came across a story from a journaler who switched from handwriting to typing because they found it more reflective.
Really? That's so interesting. I always thought the slower pace of handwriting would be better for introspection.
Right. But for this person, it seemed like the physical act of writing was getting in the way. They felt like typing let their thoughts flow more freely.
So it really comes down to personal preference and learning styles. Some people thrive on structure, while others need that freedom to just let loose.
It's like some people love following a recipe step by step, and others just throw out the instructions and start experimenting.
That's a perfect analogy. As long as you're enjoying it and getting something out of it, that's all that matters. But it does make you wonder, with all these pros and cons, how do we actually choose the right tool for the job?
Well, let's think about it practically. If you're always on the move, traveling, commuting, a digital journal is probably the way to go. It's always there ready to capture those thoughts.
Yeah, that makes sense. But for someone who loves that tactile experience of putting pen to paper digital, might not feel right at all.
Exactly. They might crave that dedicated space away from screens and notifications. A beautiful notebook might be more their style.
It's almost like each method offers a different kind of connection. Paper connects us to the past with that sense of permanence, and digital connects us to the present with its immediacy and all the multimedia possibilities.
I love that. You've touched on something really profound there. It's not just about writing, it's about how we connect to time and memory.
And maybe there's a way to bridge that gap. What if the ideal approach is actually a combination of both? Paper for those deep reflection sessions, and digital for quick notes, reminders, or even adding photos and videos.
That's a fantastic idea. You could have the best of both worlds.
It would allow you to tap into different parts of yourself, different ways of thinking and expressing your feelings.
And it all circles back to what we were talking about before, finding what truly works for you. There's no right or wrong answer when it comes to personal growth.
So for our listeners who might be feeling a bit overwhelmed by all this, what's the one thing they should take away?
Don't be afraid to experiment. Try both paper and digital. See what feels natural, what sparks your creativity, what helps you connect with yourself on a deeper level.
Great advice. And remember, it's not about finding the right answer. It's about finding what resonates with you. Your journaling practice should be a source of joy and insight, not just another thing on your to-do list.
Absolutely. And who knows, maybe through experimenting, you'll discover something new about yourself, a new way of seeing the world, or even a new way of expressing your inner voice.
That's a beautiful thought. But before we wrap up, there's one more aspect of this debate we haven't touched on yet. And I think it's a big one for our listeners. Privacy. It feels like in this digital age, our privacy is kind of always at risk. So when it comes to something as personal as journaling, I think that's a valid concern, right?
For sure. I mean, think about it. Losing a paper journal is one thing, but having all your deepest thoughts and feelings exposed online, that's a whole other level of scary.
Exactly. And it's not just about someone actually getting their hands on your journal. There are data breaches, hacking, even those journaling apps that seem harmless could be collecting and selling our information.
Yeah.
It's enough to make you want to just lock everything away.
I know what you mean. And while I don't think we need to be totally paranoid about it, we definitely need to be aware of the risks. With paper, you have way more control over who sees your words. But with digital, there's that whole question of security and privacy.
So how do we find that balance then, between the convenience of digital and the peace of mind that comes with paper?
Well, for starters, we need to be informed. Before you download any journaling app, do your research. Read those privacy policies, see what data they're collecting and what they're doing with it. Look for apps that offer encryption and other security features.
So it's like choosing a bank. You want to make sure your most valuable assets are protected.
Exactly. And just like you wouldn't leave your bank statements lying around, be mindful of where you store your digital journal. Password protect your devices. Be careful about using public Wi-Fi. You might even want to keep a separate offline copy of your most personal entries.
Those are really good tips. It seems like with digital, there's just this extra layer of responsibility that comes with all the convenience.
That's true, but in a way, the same could be said for paper. A physical journal can be lost, damaged, even snooped on by a nosy roommate. No matter what format you choose, it's about being mindful and taking steps to protect your privacy.
This whole conversation has been so insightful. I'm realizing there's no right or wrong answer here.
And that's okay. That's the beauty of journaling. It's a personal journey. What truly matters is finding a method that helps you express yourself authentically, connect with yourself, and feel safe doing so.
So for our listeners who might be feeling a little lost in this paper versus digital debate, what would you tell them?
I'd say experiment. Try different things. Maybe start with a simple notebook and pen, then try out some digital options. See what feels right, what sparks your creativity, what lets you really dive deep into your thoughts and feelings.
Trust your instincts. If something feels off or you're not comfortable with the level of privacy, don't be afraid to switch things up. Your journal is your safe space.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And remember, whether you choose paper digital or a mix of both, the most important thing is that you're making time for yourself, time for reflection, growth, and understanding.
Well said. That's what it's all about. So grab your notebook, open that app, and let those words flow. Happy journaling, everyone.